Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be telling you all about the books that I've read in the past couple of months because I have not done a reading wrap up since I think May. It has been a very long time. I haven't been reading as much as I would have liked to, but I do have a few things to talk about today. I don't know where to start, so I'm just going to start with the thing that I finished the most recently, and so that is The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J Maas. In case you didn't know, I have been rereading the Throne of Glass series this year because I still have not read Kingdom of Ash since it came out in 2018, and I am so excited for it, and I always have been, but I've been so scared to end the series. And so it kind of got to the point where I was just avoiding it, and then I just hadn't read the series in so long, and so I thought, I think I'm due for a reread anyway. This is a bind up of the 5 novellas in the Throne of Glass universe. It's like a prequel sort of book as well, and I wasn't originally going to reread this one, but then I finished Heir of Fire and I'm like, I think maybe it's a good idea to read this because there are a few things that were kind of referenced and that I know will pop up in Queen of Shadows that are touched on in here more. And so I decided to reread it, and I actually loved it. Like, I loved this so much more reading it this time than I did like years ago. Like, I enjoyed it, but it's just kind of a little break book in between, you know. But I really enjoyed my reread of this. I gave this one 4 stars. I think it's honestly the same rating as the first time I read it as well, but the relationships in here and how everything connects together just really hit different. So I'm very glad I picked up that one. Another book that I read at some point in the past couple of months was A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J Maas as well. This is a different series to the one I just talked about, and this is the second book in the ACOTAR series. Again, I have read this series, I want to say like 6 times. Like, this was my 5th or 6th reread of this book, and I loved it. I had so much fun, and I listened to this on the graphic audio book. And the graphic audio books, oh my god, they are so well done. It's got a full cast of voice actors for like every single character in here, and it's got like sound effects and music and like all of the editing as well that goes into the audiobook process. It's just really cool. It's really well produced. If you, like me, have read this series so many times and you love it and you want to reread it but like in a different sort of way, I really recommend the graphic audio books because they are just so well done, and it really adds like another layer, and they are so easy to listen to. So I reread that with this because I couldn't help myself. I wasn't planning on rereading this again this year, but the next book I'm going to be talking about is Iris Kelly Doesn't Date by Ashley Herring Blake. This is the 3rd and final book in a interconnected standalone sapphic romance series, and the first 2 books, Delilah Green Doesn't Care and Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail, oh my god, I love them so much. They were so much fun. I loved the romances. I loved the like main couples. I loved the side characters, and I was really excited for this one. I did vlog my experience reading this as well. If you want to go check that one out, I'll leave it down below or wherever up here. But I was a little bit disappointed by this. I think I did have really high expectations for this one because I loved the first 2 so much, and I really liked Iris's character in the first 2 books as well, or like what we got to see of her, and I was very keen to learn more about her, and I did enjoy learning more about her, and I really liked Stevie as well, and I really loved like their relationship. But it just, the way it was written, and it just felt clunkier compared to the other 2 books, and I just wasn't as on board with their relationship as I was with the other relationships in the series. And like, I liked them as a couple, but it just like wasn't my favorite. This one has the backdrop of a theatre show that is running on in the background that Iris and Stevie are both doing, and Iris is trying to do research for her next romance book. Previous to this, they did have a one-night stand, and so that wasn't my issue with how the relationship developed. It just wasn't, I don't know, I didn't really like the communication in here between the characters. There were some parts that were really good, but then others that just weren't so great, and it just, I don't know, it didn't rub me the wrong way, but I just didn't enjoy it as much as I was hoping to. Then I think I mentioned a couple of videos ago that I really wanted to start reading this series again and like finally catch up with it, and that is Saga. And so I did end up starting Saga again. So I read volumes 1, 2 and 3, and this is, I feel the same reading this series now as I did however many years ago it was. Like, this is just so interesting and it's so complex, and the characters are so well done, and it's really funny as well, but it's also kind of vulgar, but it's just, oh, it's such a good series. I actually started volume 4 just before I started filming this video as well, so I'm still continuing on with this series, and I feel like I remember a lot of what has happened in these first 3 volumes, but I did forget enough that it was still exciting and fresh for me to read. I don't know, like, reading this now, I feel like I haven't changed that much over the past couple of years, but I am definitely reading this with like a fresh pair of eyes and kind of new perspectives, I guess, as well. And I still really love it, and I loved it back then as well, but it's just really, really interesting to read. So I'm thoroughly enjoying these. I think I gave this one 5 stars, and I think these ones are 4-star reads for me. But in saying that, like, they're all really, really good, and I think they are well worth the read as a series in general. Then I have A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. This one I also read alongside Iris Kelly Doesn't Date in that same vlog, if you want to check that out as well. This one I gave, how much did I think this was a 3-star read for me. Let me double check. Oh, this one was also 3.5. This one is the finale in the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, and I was so excited for this one, but I was very, very disappointed. It just didn't feel as whimsical as the first 2 books in the series did. In case you didn't know, the first book in this series follows Evangeline Fox, who ends up trying to make a deal with the Prince of Hearts, and she ends up getting a curse placed upon her, and she ends up traveling to the magnificent north, and it's really magical and whimsical. The ending of the second book was a lot, and I'm so happy I didn't have to wait for this book to come out and I could just read it straight away, because the ending is a massive cliffhanger. So this one basically starts off exactly where the second book left off, and that's all well and good, except that I feel like it dragged on for way too long, and the end of the second book, it's not like a trope that I hate, but it's not my favorite, and especially when it's like dragged out for like half the book. I swear, like, half of this book is based on the ending of the second book, and I was getting so bored and so frustrated, and we didn't have it didn't have that same like whimsical magical feeling as the first 2 books did, and it made me really sad, because that's what I loved about the first 2 so much. Like, I loved the characters and everything as well, but everything just felt so, yeah, like so different and like so gorgeous, and it didn't really have that same vibe while reading this. But I am glad that I finished this series, and I also got the new like paperback. I originally had the taller paperback that came out in Australia, and it didn't match my others, so now I have this one, and I'm really happy about it, and it's so pretty. Next is another book that I ended up reading for that same vlog, and that is The Housemaid's Secret by Frida McFadden. This is the second book in the Housemaid series, and the third book has just come out like pretty recently, so I will be reading that one soon. This one is a mystery thriller. It is in the same series and follows the same, or a lot of the same characters as the first book in the series, which is just called The Housemaid. And I don't want to talk too much about it because there is so much stuff that happens in these books and it's just batshit crazy. Honestly, it is a time. I thought I knew where this was going because I was like, oh, like how different can it be from the first book, because it follows the same main character. But like, I was wrong. I was so fucking wrong, and it still completely took me by surprise. And I enjoyed myself reading this so much, and I'm really curious about the last one now and to see how I feel about that one. And the first one, oh, they're so good. I haven't read a lot of thrillers. I am sort of still a little bit new to the genre, and so I don't know if this series will be everyone's cup of tea, especially if you are a more seasoned thriller reader. But I still personally had a lot of fun with it, being new to the genre, or like reading the genre. And her writing's just so easy to digest and to read. It's so much fun. And then finally I ended up reading Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. And this one I read for like a little book club I've got going on at work, and this was my choice, and I'm really happy that I picked this because I loved it. This one I think I gave 4 out of 5 stars. It is, I want to say, like a little bit of a, it's not a weird book. I wouldn't say it's the weirdest book I've ever read, but it is a little bit of a more weird literary fiction sort of novel. It basically follows this elderly woman named Tova who works at an aquarium. She does cleaning there. So 30 years previously, Tova's son ended up disappearing on a boat trip when he was, I think, 18. Like, he was pretty young. And then more recently, her husband had just passed away as well. And so she's keeping herself busy at this cleaning job, and she is going to be retiring soon. But she ends up meeting this octopus who keeps escaping his tank, named Marcellus. And weirdly enough, they have this sort of friendship that ends up developing. And I don't want to say they talk to each other, because in this, like, he's definitely an octopus. Like, he can't speak English, but he does understand her, and she does talk to him as well, like while she's cleaning. And you know, they have this sort of friendship that develops. We end up meeting a couple of other characters as well that have more prominent storylines in this. All of their storylines end up merging together by the end. I won't say in what way or like how, but it's really well done. And Marcellus the octopus, he sort of ends up figuring out what happens to Tova's son all of those years ago. And obviously, like, he can't tell her, but he tries to tell her. It's just really heartwarming and sweet, and the way that it was all put together, and the ending, I almost cried a little bit. I didn't quite cry, which I'm surprised about, but I managed not to. But it was still really well done, and I just loved it. The writing is so enthralling and amazing. And I listened to the audiobook for a lot of this as well, and the voice acting is phenomenal. Like, I really enjoyed the voice acting for this, and I think it's a really well done audiobook. And it's just a beautiful story about like grief and friendship and family and growing up as well, not with Tova but with some of the other characters, and just kind of like how life can change in not only like in an instant but over time as well, and in so many different ways. And it was really good to read. I'm so glad that I ended up reading this one. Definitely recommend if you're into lit fic, or if you don't mind like a sprinkle of weirdness. I wouldn't say that this is like a book I would recommend if you're looking for weird books, but also when I was trying to explain it, like what I was reading to like friends and my partner and everything, they're like, what? Like, it didn't make a lot of sense. So I suppose it does have like a weird-ish concept, but in saying that, I wouldn't call it a weird book. Regardless though, it was very, very interesting to read and it was very entertaining. Okay, so they are all of the books that I read over the past couple of months. Not a hell of a lot, I'm well aware, but I'm pretty happy with what I did end up reading, and even my rereads. I want to say most of these are rereads. Okay. Oopsie. So 4 of these books are books that I hadn't read already, and 5 of these books are rereads. Okay, I guess it was a big couple of months for rereads for me. Maybe I was struggling to read more than I realized, and then I was just like reading books that I already read and loved before. But that's fine, I love a good reread. I am going to leave it there though. Let me know what you've been reading recently as well. I'd love to hear it. If you've read any of these, or if you're interested in reading any of these, let me know down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below as well. It really helped me out. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!